afternoon, Tuscaloosa and the internet world. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. You can follow us on BamaCentral.com. You can follow me at Joe Gaither6. Send us your comments, questions, queries, and complaints right there to the Facebook, to the Twitter, to the YouTube side of things. Thanks to everybody for jumping in and joining us today. I want to encourage you guys to jump on and listen to the rest of our BamaCentral Broadcasting Network podcast, All Things Bama and Blue Collar Unplugged. We're gonna have great episodes going forward from both of those podcasts. We're going to have a fun show today. First off, before we get the day going, I want to thank my man Ronnie Cottrell, head coach of Mobile Christian School. Go Leopards. Ronnie Cottrell joined me yesterday to talk about Deontay Lawson and to talk about Sterling Dixon. Sterling Dixon, four-star linebacker, who is committed to the University of Alabama, and we'll see if he continues to stay committed to the University of Alabama. Coach Cottrell talking about that commitment yesterday, so appreciate him joining us. And we'll be joined tomorrow by Will Sanders. Will Sanders, class of 2025 offensive lineman from Brookwood High School, already been offered scholarships from major universities, including the University of Alabama. So we'll be joined by Will Sanders tomorrow. For today's show, it's going to be fun. I hope it's going to be fun. I expect it to be fun. We're going to be joined by Blake Byler. Blake Byler of BamaCentral.com. Blake Byler is our basketball expert. Blake Byler is all over the roster management for Alabama basketball, and that's really what we're going to get into today. I mean, yes, we'll talk about the arena. We'll talk about last year's season. Oh, the heartbreak, the pain. We'll touch on Brandon Miller's draft status. All reports indicate that Brandon Miller is going to get drafted number 2 overall to the Charlotte Hornets. So we'll talk about anything Alabama basketball related with our friend Blake Byler of BamaCentral. So it's going to be a lot of fun. As we do that, we're setting up topics. Our friend Grant Nelson just finished his visit to the University of Alabama. Grant Nelson and Arthur Kaluma are really your big 2 targets that Alabama is looking to secure its last couple of spots on the roster with. And really, all reports that I have heard are that Grant Nelson enjoyed his time in Tuscaloosa. Unfortunately, he is still going to take his official visit to Arkansas. Probably, that's to be expected, and we'll see if the Walton family, if Alabama can really hold on to him through the weekend. I expect Grant Nelson to make a decision on where he's going to play his college basketball here probably in the next 3 days. And I'm hoping, golly, if he comes to Alabama, I saw a tweet, I saw a report. Grant Nelson, his game is tailor-made, is what they said, tailor-made to play in the University of Alabama system. I mean, 6'11", he'll man the post, but he's also able to shoot the three a little bit. I think he averaged 35%. 28% from three. He's gone 32% his junior year and 35% his sophomore year. So the guy can shoot, the guy can stroke it, and really would be a huge addition to the University of Alabama's program this coming up year. Now, additionally, we added an assistant coach yesterday. Well, not really new news, but Alabama basketball announcing the official hire of Ryan Pannoni, and I'm looking forward to hearing about Ryan Pannoni from Blake Byler. They tweeted about it 2 months ago, but now he is officially a part of the Alabama staff. Ryan Pannoni quotes, "Over my last 4 years at Alabama," this is Nate Oates. After my last 4 years at Alabama, I have gotten to know Ryan through his work with the Pelicans organization. He is one of the brightest minds in the game of basketball and a relentless worker. Ryan brings a wealth of X's and O's and experience to Tuscaloosa from his time coaching in the NBA, G League, and overseas. He is recognized as a top recruiter and a leader in player development, both crucial to long and short-term success for our program. We are excited Ryan is on board working with our student athletes. Not only is he a fantastic coach, but he's an even better person and a proven mentor of young men. I am sure Ryan and his family will become a valued member of the Tuscaloosa community. So I'm looking forward to see. Look, he's been with the New Orleans Pelicans for the last handful of years. He was the G League Birmingham Squadron head coach this past for a season. And he went on to say, "I'm extremely honored to join the University of Alabama and Coach Oates' staff. The chance to join a legendary school with a basketball program that is among the country's best is a privilege. Coach Oates leads a team that competes with NBA-style ball and runs NBA sets. So to have the opportunity to leverage my NBA experience to mentor and raise up student athletes was a rare and rewarding opportunity that I could not pass up." And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Ryan Pannoni brings to the Alabama program. Look, you still have one more assistant coaching position open. Well, it chronicled that Nate Oates has had kind of a historic turnover, losing all 3 assistant coaches this year to head coaching jobs. Our man Antoine Petway to Kennesaw State, Brian Hodgson to Arkansas State, and Charlie Henry to Georgia Southern. So those 3 coaches, congratulations. You look forward to seeing what they will do in their own programs. But Ryan Pannoni becomes one of the 3 new assistant basketball coaches. You still have one opening spot, and we look forward to seeing who coach is going to fill that open spot with. Probably, it sounds like that is already kind of decided. Just needs the timing to work out correctly for the next assistant coach to join the Alabama basketball staff. So it's going to be a fun time for Alabama with Alabama hoops. I'm going to leave and come back on in 1 second, said my man Blake Byler. All right, well, here we are. What else do we have left here? Oh yeah, all right. So let's talk about the guys that we're going to talk to Blake with. We just touched on Grant Nelson. Grant Nelson was with the Alabama team this past week. He was in Tuscaloosa for an official visit this past week. Arthur Kaluma is also on the list. Arthur Kaluma, 6'7", 225-pounder, 12 points a game last year for Creighton, 6 rebounds a game. So he was really a strong part of the Creighton Blue Jays. So, look, Alabama, let's see, where is my roster? I've got so many daggum tabs open. Departing, I believe that there's still 3 more opening spots. I believe there's 3 more open spots. Blake is going to join. Oh, perfect timing. Saved by the bell. Saved by the Blake Byler. We're joined by Blake Byler right now. And Blake, I'm trying to figure out actually how many open spots the Alabama Crimson Tide have. I believe it's still 3 spots on the roster for 2023. And welcome to the program. Follow our friends Blake Byler at Blake Byler 45 on the Twitter machine. We've kind of previewed. Oh, you're losing connection. Okay, that's okay. We will work around connection issues as best we can. Good morning. Let's test it out. Good morning, Blake. Can you hear me? You cannot hear me. All right, that's no problem. He's taking off. He's checking his internet. We're getting that worked out. I think there's still 3 spots. Yes, Blake tweeting on May 31st that there's still 3 spots available for Nate Oates to manage and mitigate to try to bring in some talent. So we touched on Arthur Kaluma, we touched on Grant Nelson, Jaron Stevenson. Jaron Stevenson visited Alabama May 9th. Let's see. Did he already commit? Isaiah Miranda. We're doing this all on the fly. And Adrame Diangu. We'll have to see if we get the pronunciation correctly from Blake Byler on Isaiah on Adrame Diangu. That's a lot of fun. Adrame Diangu. All right, we're still waiting on Blake to get his internet connection correct. Let's touch on something that I brought up yesterday. EA Sports offering $500 to all kinds of players, to every player, to get their name, image, and likeness in the new video game. I basically laid out yesterday that nobody should turn down the $500 because EA Sports doesn't technically need the players. Doesn't technically need the players to do the video game because, look, they did, what, 15 years worth of the video game without the players' participation? They're just simply offering the players $500 to be a part of the video game, and I said you shouldn't turn it down. There was lots of talk yesterday about the players turning it down, looking for more money, looking for a bigger piece of the pie. But there's no reason to turn it down because if you turn it down, they say, oh, we don't want to negotiate. We don't want to give you $600, $700, $800, $900. You're not worth it. It's either take the $500 or take the 500 or take it or leave it. Alabama safety Malachi Moore tweeting out about a half hour ago, I am not boycotting. And look, that's the right answer. Your college athletes, go ahead and get into EA Sports, get into NCAA football. Like, it would be so much fun to see myself in the game. And if you're also going to offer me $500 in the process to put myself in the game, absolutely. I talked yesterday about being an average Andy athlete and not really being a star athlete in my high school days and not really carrying that forward. If I was ever offered to be in the video game, I would 100% take it. Especially $500 is just a bonus. And so I see Malachi Moore basically saying he's not gonna turn down the money to get in the game. And Malachi actually is one of those that might have a little more leverage. Than the average athlete, because Malachi's probably going to be a first-round draft pick. Malachi's probably going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. If at the worst, he's going to fall to the third round. So he's going to be a premier player on. Obviously, if you're playing on Alabama, you're playing for a premier program. So I think that you're very, very dumb to not take the $500, the $500 and be a part of the new NCAA EA Sports video game, the college video game coming out very, very soon. All right, let's touch on Wake Forest just a little bit because we're still waiting on our friend Blake Byler, and it's no problem. He's having a little bit of some connection issues. Maybe Blake is snaking me because I don't know. Maybe he doesn't really care for me. We'll see, for some silly reason. But we'll talk about Wake Forest. We'll talk about Alabama going up to Wake Forest this coming up weekend. Alabama taking on Wake in the Super Regionals, and Wake has been absolutely loaded throughout the season. Okay, so a couple of quick stats. Since the tournament was changed in 2018 to include 16 seeded teams, only once has the number one overall seed reached the College World Series, Florida, in 2018. So hopefully we can continue that streak going. The number one overall seed has not won a national championship in 24 years. Wild stat. All right, here we go. Alabama going up to Wake Forest this weekend. And look, the Wake Forest has not lost a weekend series or back-to-back games this entire season. Unbelievable. That's insane. Wake Forest leads the nation in wins and winning percentage during the regular season. It subsequently became the first team in program history to reach the 50-win mark. Here we go. Let's see. They've got heavy power. Junior third baseman Brock Wilken leads the team with 27 home runs, 77 RBIs, and 173 total bases while hitting .353. Kurtz is considered one of the best hitters in college baseball and a top draft prospect. He has 23 home runs, 67 RBI, 145 total bases, and a team best 384 batting average, as well as redshirt junior second baseman Justin Johnson, hitting .340, 15 home runs, and 74 RBI. So you're going to have a massive issue with you're going to have a massive problem with their lineup. But I think, look, the starting pitchers for Alabama over the last couple of weeks have been very, very strong. So you're going up to Wake Forest, and you have a huge matchup, a huge battle, a very massive challenge to try to get to Omaha. Golly, what? If Alabama makes it to Omaha, what a story that would be, considering everything that the Crimson Tide program has dealt with over the last several months, and really over the last 10, 15 years or so. It would be a hell of a story. You got a huge challenge on task this weekend going up to Wake Forest. I want to encourage you to listen to follow our friends Austin Hannon and Will Miller as they're up there covering the Super Regionals. You can follow Austin Hannon at Austin Hannon SI and Will Miller at Real WB Miller right there on the Twitter machines for all of their coverage. All right, we're gonna go back and try Blake one more time as he's back in the green room. Let's see, Blake Byler 45. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, great.
Do you remember the old Verizon commercial? Maybe too old for you. He was walking around. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's right. I had a couple just audio issues on my computer, so I had to switch over to a different device, but I think we're good now.
Oh, it's all good. I appreciate you jumping on and joining me today. I'm looking forward to talking to you about roster management, about Alabama basketball, something that a subject that I love, but a subject that you are really, really, really familiar with. So let's get it started off. First off, where's a nice general place to start? Follow Blake Byler on Twitter at Blake Byler 45. He is our basketball coverage man on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. So make sure you're checking out all of his work on BamaCentral.com. Blake, let's start with Grant Nelson.
Yep.
Grant Nelson just finished up his official visit to the University of Alabama. Those who are unfamiliar with him because he played up at North Dakota State. Look, he's a big-time prospect. He went into the NBA draft. He withdrew from the NBA draft. Now he's in the transfer portal, and now he's shopping for school. So that kind of sets us up. Talk about Grant Nelson, and really, we'll just talk about your article that you wrote about a week ago about Alabama's five potential front court prospects that Alabama could add to this 2023 roster.
Yeah, so to start with Grant Nelson, he's a big man from North Dakota State. Like you said, he entered the NBA draft, went through the pre-draft process that a lot of Alabama players went through, being like Mark Sears, Javon Quinterly, who both opted to return, and then obviously Charles Bediako, who opted to remain in the draft. And that decision was a little bit of a surprise, which I'm sure you've covered on your show. But that leads to Alabama needing some guys to fill those front court positions. And so whenever Grant Nelson decided to withdraw from the NBA draft and enter his name in the transfer portal, he immediately became one of the hottest commodities in the portal just because of how good of a player he was for North Dakota State last year. He averaged like 18 points a game, about 6 rebounds for the Bison. He was first team All Summit League, 6'11". The thing that impresses me the most about Nelson is the fluidity and the amount of like skills he has in his offensive game. He has really nice handle for a big man. He can shoot the ball. The numbers don't show it. He shot like 31%, or he shot like right under 30% last year. He's a 31% shooter for his career, which is good for a big man. He has the capability to stretch the floor. He's super athletic. He can block shots. He plays above the rim, finishes above the rim. And so all of these offensive kind of skills that he has in his bag make him a very highly coveted player. And so his recruitment, at first, it was reported that he was going to go on 3 visits. He was going to go to Baylor and then Alabama and then Arkansas. He canceled his Baylor visit, which was supposed to be earlier this week, before it happened. He actually finished up his Alabama visit. I think he left Tuscaloosa this morning to go to Fayetteville. He was in Tuscaloosa. I believe he got in Tuesday night and had the full day yesterday in Tuscaloosa. And then today he will be in Arkansas. And I believe the expectation is he will make a decision roughly around the end of this week once he's gotten all of his visits done. But at this point, it looks like a 2-horse race between Alabama and Arkansas, 2 SEC rivals for this really coveted big man. I think, if you're asking me, I think Alabama is probably a better fit for him with the way that Nate Oates likes to play his offensive style of basketball with 5 guys out. The way that Nelson can stretch the floor, like if you watch his film, he looks like if Nate Oates could dream up a big man to put in his lineup, like Grant Nelson is that guy. He's super athletic. He can put the ball on the deck. He can make moves. He can score on smaller defenders, but he can also stretch the floor, leave the lane open for drives, and just be that spacing that Alabama needs for their offense. And you combine that with the fact that Bediako's gone, Clowney's off to the draft, and so the only big man returning on Alabama's roster is Nick Pringle. He's kind of a big need for Alabama and somebody that they have right here really within striking distance to pull this off. And so it would be a really big get for them to be able to pull off his commitment here in the next probably week or so, is I'm assuming when he'll decide.
But let's just talk conceptually with these visits, and maybe it's just because I'm a stubborn SOB. Is 2 days of one day enough to like see the program and then bounce on to another day? Like combining a bunch of visits in a week? I don't know. Like obviously that's what they do, but I hear that and I think like that would stress me the hell out.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I don't know exactly how, like the specifics of how the visits go. I imagine they go to practice. They probably play some pickup with the guys, meet the guys on the team, probably take him out to a nice dinner, let him see the facilities and everything else that goes on. It feels like, I agree, it feels like a really short time to be able to really understand and see everything that you're going to be getting with these schools and with this like massive decision that he has to make. But that's how kind of the recruiting machine works, and that's how these things go. And so he just has to hope that he sees enough over these over the past 2 days and over the next 2 days in Fayetteville.
With the timeline being so condensed, and really, I'm making an assumption here. I'm going to assume there's a heavy NIL package at play, probably from both schools. How do you think the condensed timeline, and really the Walton family? We all know that Arkansas is pretty well loaded. Are we worried about a big NIL package kind of coming in over the top to sway Grant Nelson over to Fayetteville?
I mean, Arkansas has been known for their NIL deals, especially in basketball, since kind of the inception of NIL, and how much money we know that Arkansas has and how much they're willing to put into their basketball program. And so I definitely think that's what would pull Nelson away from Alabama, because just from a fit perspective, I think Alabama fits him better. And also from a playing time perspective, I think there is more of a path to more minutes in Tuscaloosa than there is in Fayetteville, because over in Fayetteville, you have Trayvon Brazile coming back, who was their starting center before he tore his ACL in December, and was looking like one of the best big men in the SEC. And then on top of that, you have a five-star in Bay Fall coming in. That's another center at Arkansas. And so Nelson could play the power forward there. He's probably more naturally a four, but at the same time, there's a lot of guys in that Arkansas front court that's really talented. Whereas on the Alabama side, he's walking into a starting role and probably playing close to 30 minutes, 32 minutes a game. So I think from a basketball and a fit perspective, Alabama probably makes the most sense, but it is natural to believe that Arkansas can offer more money on an NIL level. And so I definitely think that would be a huge factor in pulling Nelson away if Arkansas does end up landing him.
Blake, I know you're doing your part every time you're going through the chicken aisle and avoiding the Tyson chicken. You're getting the other brand, right?
That's right.
When you're seeing Grant Nelson, I'm watching this film just in the last couple of weeks, just YouTube highlights. I'm not deep. But I'm seeing a lot of what you're seeing. I'm seeing, okay, this guy can really fit the Alabama system. He can stroke it. He can get to the cup. He's got a nice athleticism. But I'm then looking at the competition, and I'm seeing a lot of guys up there in what would you say, the big what is North?
He's in the Summit League.
Yes, a lot of guys in the Summit League that look like they could have played in my high school league. And so I wonder, like, do you worry about the competition that Grant Nelson has gone against over the last couple of years, and then going into hopefully Alabama in the SEC?
I think that's a fair concern, because obviously the size in the Summit League and the skill and the strength is nowhere near what it is in the SEC. But I think you've also seen guys make the jump from mid-major to the SEC and be really successful in their first year. I mean, look at Janai Broome for Auburn. He played at Morehead State 2 years ago, was a really good player there, and then transferred to the SEC, and he was one of the best bigs in the SEC for Auburn a year ago. And so, I mean, same with guards, but I mean, with bigs, strength and the competition, it's definitely going to be a learning curve. I mean, we can remember Noah Gurley coming from Furman. He had kind of had an adjustment period that he had to deal with in his first year, because the strength is different. But I think that Nelson is so skilled that maybe trumps some of the strength concerns, and just the way that Nate Oates and new assistant coach Ryan Pannone are going to be able to use him, especially offensively, is going to be, I think that could be really special, the way he could fit in there. So yeah, I see the concerns there in regards to moving up a level, but at the same time, this was also a guy who entered the NBA draft and was being considered for maybe a second round selection, or potentially a guy who could be an undrafted free agent playing the G League. And so when he's talented enough to be in the NBA draft, get consideration, but still want to come back, I'm assuming his goal is to make the NBA. And I think Alabama or Arkansas are programs that can help him to get there. But with talent like that, I think the jump up to a Power 5 level won't be super difficult for him.
We're talking to Blake Byler, and you can follow him on Twitter at Blake Byler at 45. Our man on the BamaCentral front for Alabama basketball. Blake, I was I've been trying to follow the roster management. There are 3 spots left, correct? There's
Yes.
3 scholarship spots.
There are 3 spots left, 3 open scholarships. Yeah, there can be some confusion with the guys that enter the draft and then come back and everything. But yeah, as of right now, there's three.
Okay, so we're filling one with Grant Nelson. Knock on wood. All right, we're filling one with Grant Nelson. Let's do
Potentially.
that. I know. Okay. We're getting in front of ourselves. I'm just trying to. Do you believe in manifestation? We're filling it with Grant Nelson, Shaquille O'Neal Jr., and Hakeem Olajuwon Jr. No. All right, so let's talk about Arthur Kaluma. Let's talk about Arthur Kaluma
Yeah.
because he is transfer from Creighton. Look, Alabama fans hear the name Creighton and like their heart goes out of their chest. What are you seeing Arthur Kaluma and like? If you're Nate Oates, you've got a whole list of 5 guys. If you're Nate Oates, how are you prioritizing? Hey, man, we want to go get these guys in this order.
Yeah. So of the story I posted last week that was walking through those 5 guys, the last 2 were just kind of guys that names had been like Alabama had been loosely attached to. One of them actually recently committed. Isaiah Miranda was a 7'1" center from NC State. I believe he committed to Oklahoma State. But he was just loosely mentioned with Alabama. Same with the Washington State transfer. It really seems like the guys that Alabama is closest like most closely tied to are Nelson, Arthur Kaluma, and then Jaron Stevenson. Um, Kaluma is the Creighton transfer, like you said. There have been rumors of him potentially visiting. I know he hasn't scheduled any visits yet after withdrawing from the draft and choosing to transfer. So his timeline is kind of less close to being done than Nelson's is because Nelson wanted to knock out all his visits and then get the thing over with. Kaluma has been tied to Alabama, Kentucky, Kansas State, schools like that. He's 6'7", and so he's kind of a smaller. I mean, I guess that's not really small in college, but a smaller power forward, a guy who he's really strong inside. He rebounds the ball really well. He scored, I think, 12 a game for Creighton last year. He's a really good inside scorer. He's a really good defender, which is another something that Alabama needs after losing such good defenders to the NBA draft in Clowney and Bediako and Miller. So he would be another good ad. I think he complements Nelson really well in the fact that their games are different, but they also can play different positions. Like Alabama could plug Nelson in at the 5 and Kaluma at the 4, and then you have 6'7", 6'11", so you have more size. Kaluma plays more inside, can score better inside. He can rebound really well, while Nelson can is a little more finesse, can play more outside. I think they would complement each other well in the front court. Obviously, Alabama needs the help in the front court because right now it's just Pringle and Sam Walters and Mo Diabate, the 2 freshmen. But I think we'll be learning more about Kaluma in the coming weeks. It just all depends on who's closest to him right now. I don't know. Maybe he wants to be in more of a starring role. Maybe Grant Nelson committing to Alabama would deter him from Alabama. Who knows? I mean, it's hard to tell what these guys are thinking until they start setting visits and they start kind of showing their hand a little bit in terms of where they're leaning. And so the other guy that Alabama is close with is Jared Stevenson, who's a 5-star power forward. He's from North Carolina. He's actually it's believed to be down to Alabama and North Carolina. And he's actually from right outside of Chapel Hill. I believe his mom played at North Carolina, so he's a legacy there. But at the same time, Alabama hosted him in May on an official visit, and then North Carolina hosted him just last week in the beginning of June. And the thing with Stevenson, he's really big. He's 6'10". He can score really well inside, rebound really well. He would obviously help with the size concerns and the need for depth in the front court. He's actually in the class. He's a 5-star in the class of 2024, but he's potentially a reclassification candidate for 2023. So if he were to commit during the summer, he could reclassify and join Alabama for this coming season. But Nelson, Kaluma, and Stevenson seem to be the 3 guys that Alabama is targeting the most for those spots. Now, it's highly unlikely that they would get all 3 of them to fill all those 3 spots. I think getting one of them is honestly a necessity at this point to get some bodies in the front court. Getting 2 would leave Alabama, I think, in a really good position heading into next year if they were able to get 2 of those 3.
Well, Blake, let's go back up just a little bit and go big picture. Like, okay,
Yeah.
where are you You get some of these guys, you don't get some of these guys. Okay, I trust Nate Oates that he's going to bring in the 3 scholarships are going to get filled either with the 2 best players or the 3 best players that he can go find. You look at last year and everybody's like, "Oh my God, Alabama's so good. Brandon Miller, you're so good. Number 1 team in the nation, winning the double again." The expectations are starting to get pretty high around Tuscaloosa, and I love that. No matter who you get in this next couple of months, these next 2-month period ahead of the fall semester, do you still have high expectations for this program? I've had a couple of people on since we started this and said, "Oh no, no way that they're winning the SEC again. No way that they're competing with the SEC at the top of the SEC again." And I hear that, and I think that's a bunch of hooey, because I just think that no matter who Alabama can get, or no matter who Nate Oates is going after, he's going to coach them up, they're going to play hard, and compete with the top end of the SEC. Or do you feel good about really just, even though you had a lot of transition after this past season, just the overall health and state of this program?
The program's in the best spot it's been in since Sanderson was here, like, no question. But in terms of next season, I think, honestly, it depends a lot on how Oates closes out this transfer portal cycle and who he brings in. I think as the team stands right now, I think it's a borderline top 25 team. Could compete for like maybe a double bye in the SEC. I don't think as it stands currently, it's a threat to win the SEC just because of how much size there is in the SEC and the lack of a front court. But at the same time, those guards are dynamic, and that backcourt is one of the deepest in the entire country.
People are overlooking that.
I agree. And so the fact that there's not much of a front court right now doesn't change the fact that you have Mark Sears, Javon Quinterly, Aaron Estrada, Latrell Wrightsell, like all these guys, Rylan Griffin, all of these guys that are going to be really good next year in the backcourt. That's going to be one of the best in the country for sure. So that talent alone, I think, makes that team a borderline top 25 team. Defense is a concern as of right now because of the lack of rim protection and a lot of smaller guards that are going to be playing a lot in the lineup, even though like Sears is a scrappy defender. And we saw JQ was shown himself to be a really good defender, especially towards the end of the year last year. But in terms of program health, it's in a fantastic spot. I mean, Alabama is once again looking at a potential preseason top 25 team. If the team can land Nelson and maybe get one of Kaluma or Stevenson, that's probably a top 15 team to start the preseason with the potential to be like they'll be competing for an SEC title. For sure. I don't know if they'll win it, but
sure.
If you can land a couple of those guys, then you'll be up there competing with what looks like on paper the best teams in the league, like a Tennessee, a Texas A&M, and Arkansas. Guys like that teams like that look like they're at the top of the league right now. So yeah, to answer your question, like program is obviously in a fantastic spot. I mean, Alabama's just hosted a guy like Grant Nelson, which would have never happened 5 years ago. Alabama's already brought in 2 high-level transfers and a good recruiting class, and they're in a good spot for a lot of 2024 recruits, which I'm sure Oates and his staff will turn their attention to after this. Yeah, after these last few transfer portal guys make their decision. But there's reason to be optimistic for next year. Now, they're not going to go 31-6 or whatever the record was last year. Like, that's just not going to happen. They're not going to be. Well, I would say they're not going to be 16-2 in the SEC again, but I mean they did it 2 out of 3 years. So I mean anything's possible, but I would not go in expecting that kind of level of performance. I think depending on who you get, this team could go in with the expectations of like a fringe top 25 team to maybe like a top 15. You could see them competing for the SEC. You just gotta get the guys in.
Well, let's talk about an addition this week that was official, that was announced this week. Ryan Pannoni was announced as the second assistant coach, also joining Austin Clanch. Now Nate Oates has 2 assistants locked in. We're looking for a third. I think he's probably got it zeroed in on a couple of thirds. But what do we know about Ryan Pannoni as his hiring was announced this week officially?
Yeah, Pannone was last year's assistant coach. Yeah, assistant coach for the New Orleans Pelicans last year. So he's worked with guys like Herb Jones and Kyra Lewis, Alabama alums. He previously was the head coach of the Birmingham Squadron. And so Oates kind of already knew him through his work with the Pelicans, with some of the guys that he formerly coached, and also being down the road in Birmingham, being the head coach of that G League team. He's going to come in and he's going to fill the role left by. And if you remember, Charlie Henry was previously also a G League head coach. He was head coach of the Windy City Bulls, as kind of the X's and O's guy on the staff. And he, yeah, basically, he's got a brilliant offensive and defensive mind, just a brilliant X's and O's basketball mind. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is his Twitter. If you go to his Twitter, is just his name at Ryan Pannone. Everything on his Twitter is plays. It's just him tweeting and retweeting basketball plays that he finds, whether it be in like some
yes,
Israeli league or a G League team or an old NCAA tournament. Like he's all that he tweets about is different plays. And so that shows me how, yeah, that just shows me how smart he is and how much he loves the game. And I think having a mind like that and a new mind inside the locker room is really going to help. I think that's going to help the team, and I think it's going to help Nate Oates as a coach grow as well. Because I mean, he's still a young coach. He's only been coaching for what 9 years total in college basketball. Like I think Bruce Pearl's been at Auburn longer than Nate Oates has been a Division I head coach. So when you think about that, like Oates is still a really young guy. He's got a lot to learn too. And I think Pannone is a guy who can help push him to be the best version of himself as a coach that he can be. He can help push the team. I think we're going to see a lot of creative sets. Especially Pannone seems like more of an offensive guy than Charlie Henry was. Like we know that Charlie Henry was the defensive guy. And Oates talked about that. He was essentially the defensive coordinator. But, I mean, you can see that Pannone has a brilliant offensive mind. And so you're going to see a lot of, I think, more unique sets on baseline out-of-bounds plays, on sets that at the end of the game you need a bucket, drawing up things for different guys. That's why I'm excited to see such good shot makers like Aaron Estrada and Mark Sears, guys like that get to be keyed in on with different sets that Pannone's going to draw up during the season. That's going to be really exciting to watch. Also thinking about things that a guy like Grant Nelson could do with him in that system. And so he's used to running an NBA system. Oates runs an NBA system, so it's kind of a seamless fit on top of the fact that they already know each other. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch, and we're going to see some fun new wrinkles in Alabama's sets and plays that we haven't seen maybe before.
All right, Blake, you used a phrase that was has been popular over the last couple of years with Nate Oates. Out of bounds plays. I don't think that look, the Alabama well, all right, let me think how I want to phrase this. The average fans has come over the last couple of years. Nate Oates can't draw up an out of bounds play. I don't necessarily think that's been true. But you bring up Pannone and ability to scheme up plays out of bounds. Do you think that Nate Oates has had trouble getting the ball in bounds?
Yeah, I mean,
okay, all right,
we've watched it.
Damn.
Now, I don't know if it's I mean, I'm not in the huddles, so I don't know if it's for lack of trying or if it's because whatever he's drawing up isn't working, So like the thing that Alabama has done and a lot of teams have done since, like, I've noticed it in college basketball since I was a kid, is they just post up their center on like halfway between the block and the free throw line extended, and they just lob it over the top. And that's an inbounds play for a lot of people when they just want to get the ball in. But I remember Alabama toward the tournament, I felt like things really got stagnant in that area. It was really from like the Tennessee game on, because the Tennessee game on the road in Knoxville had like 4 or 5 turnovers on baseline out of bounds plays that for fans were really frustrating to watch. I remember seeing people blow up on Twitter about it. But it kept looking like it was a very similar set of screens that was being run underneath, because you would have you'd like line Rylan Griffin up on the block and the wing would come set a down screen. He'd pop out and defenses would just switch that and it would be really easy to cover. And so it didn't feel like there was a lot of creativity. And so like not being in the huddle, I don't know if that's because of they can't figure out a play that works, or they're just not trying to, or they're focused on something else. But I definitely think having a new voice in the room, like Pannone, that can really help spark more creativity, especially a guy that's as bright of a basketball mind as Pannone is, in that area. And I think that definitely can and will improve.
Well, good. That'll be something that Alabama fans can be happy about. Look, my man Nate Oates analyzes himself, says, Joe, you're wrong. We do stink it out of bounds. We're going to go get a guy who's really good at it. And so, all right, this is great. Pannone's going to bring in some out of bounds plays to get some easy buckets. We love that. I think that's going to be great. Maybe I'm blinded by my love of the analytics. I think that just the way that Alabama's played over the last 4 years has been so much fun. It's just so modern that it makes me so excited, and I feel like so many people just don't quite understand it that I get really defensive when they question what he's doing. So I get pretty defensive, stupidly, biasedly, in that fashion. Let's talk about Brandon Miller real quick. Brandon Miller reports last week was that he's pretty much locked in at the number 2 overall selection. What do you make about his fit with Charlotte? Is Michael Jordan just going to draft him to suck all of his talents away and waste his career? What do we think about the fit in Charlotte and just kind of Brandon Miller over? I mean, obviously we love what we saw for the last year, but his NBA game is going to jump. Is going to take off.
Yeah, I mean, I would take, or I'm taking, that report was Kevin O'Connor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm taking, like, obviously there's so many smoke screens that get thrown around
pre-draft.
Away from the draft,
lying.
Everybody's lying. Everything. I remember last year, Woj tweeted the morning of the draft that Jabari Smith was going to go number 1 to the Magic, and then Paolo went number 1. And so, like, you never really know until you actually get into the draft and it's actually happening. But hypothetically, let's say Miller does go to Charlotte. I mean, I love the fit next to LaMelo Ball. I think that's a lot of fun, and 2 really high-powered offensive players that can make things a lot of fun. When I'm thinking about the Hornets I don't know a lot about the Hornets roster, to be honest with you, because I haven't watched the Hornets play.
They're never on TV because they're not.
No, they're never on TV because they're bad.
they're bad. And
they're awful.
Here's their roster real quick: LaMelo Ball, James Bouknight, Gordon Hayward, Kai Jones, Theo Meladon, Cody Martin. That's not right.
Caleb Martin's brother, twin brother.
Oh, okay. Bryce McGowan's, Kelly Oubre. Terry Rozier, that's a name I know. JT, PJ Washington. All right, they got a couple of players.
Well, obviously, they need the offensive help. I mean, Rozier's been there since he left Boston.
Scary Terry.
And then P.J. Washington's been there out of Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, he's going to fit in well. They need shooting. He's got that. He's probably going to have a lot of offensive freedoms because your ball-dominant players there are Rozier, who's a good scorer. You have LaMelo, who's a really, really good passer. And so Brandon being able to play off LaMelo is going to be good. But I think the fit would be good. I think the timeline also fits really well because you name like Bouknight, Washington, Kai Jones. Those are all guys that are like younger than 22. Like, so LaMelo, Rozier, and Gordon Hayward are like the only old guys on that team. And so you're going to have a core that can really who's their coach? I was going to say Michael Jordan. He's not their coach. He's their owner.
Steve Clifford.
Oh, that's right. So, yeah, Clifford's going to be able to build around that core of young guys for a long time if they want to keep them together, and they're going to be able to grow together. It's a different situation than, let's say, if he fell to 3 and went to Portland. I mean, we don't know what Portland's going to be because we don't know if Damian Lillard's going to get traded. We don't know if they're going to package Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp and something else for another star with Lillard. I mean, Portland is a mixed bag. Like, we don't really know what they're going to be. I think seeing Miller and Dame would be really fun. Same way that it would be fun with LaMelo. But I think Miller fits well next to LaMelo. I think he fits better than Scoot Henderson, who would be the other option there at number 2. But at the same time, there's an argument to be made that Henderson is more talented or just better than Miller. I think they're both kind of right there. And so, I mean, if it was me, I'm taking whoever the best player available is. I haven't looked into Scoot Henderson enough to really have a firm opinion on who's better between him and Miller. But in the lottery, you got to take just whoever the best player is. You kind of get messed up when you start trying to draft for fit early in the draft because you miss out on a generational talent, or you're like Golden State a couple years ago when they drafted Wiseman over LaMelo Ball, and just had no value there to work with, and then traded Wiseman for like a bag of chips later in the year, like earlier this year. And so I think if Charlotte should draft whoever they think is better, and if that's Brandon Miller, then cool, and if it's Scoot Henderson, then cool.
Blake, tell everybody real quick before we keep rolling about Blue Collar Unplugged, you and Matthew Gibson. I've been starting and ending our podcast by encouraging everybody to listen to all of our BamaCentral podcasts. Tell everybody real quick about BamaCentral, about Blue Collar Unplugged, and we'll keep rolling.
Yeah, Blue Collar Unplugged is a podcast hosted by myself, Matthew Gibson, who has recently started interning with us here at BamaCentral, and then our other friend, Jacob Pickle, who is now the Crimson Chaos president. And so the three of us, the podcast will be moving over here to BamaCentral. It will be uploaded and posted here in the coming weeks. We don't have an exact date on when we're launching it over here. We are, trying to let some more off-season things develop, so we have some more things to talk about, as well as Jacob Pickle has been in Rochester, New York since about March, working for the PGA Championship. And so he's been hard at work, so we're kind of waiting on him to get back, get settled in, so the three of us can kind of sit down and record. But here in the coming weeks, you will see the first episode of Blue Collar Unplugged over here on BamaCentral, and then that's where it'll be from here on out.
That's what's up, and don't short yourself or Matthew Gibson. Matthew just went out to Oklahoma City to cover the softball team, and you're working very hard yourself. So all three of you guys are working very hard. We look forward to hearing the first episode drop here on the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. All right, let's talk real quick about we were just talking about the draft. We only have a few more minutes left. Real quick, are you a believer in Victor Wembanyama?
Yeah,
I know it's not an Alabama topic, but yeah.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I'm not in the I don't think he's going to be a bust. And I also don't think I think the only way he busts is if he gets injured, and I don't personally classify that as like a bust.
Agreed,
I don't think Greg Oden's a bust because he got hurt. You know, I think that's just unfortunate. Now, if you get drafted and you're bad, like Anthony Bennett or something like that, then you're a bust. But human beings weren't made to be 7'4" like that. We see athletic. Like that, and athletic. Like that's why Porzingis is always hurt. That's why Yao Ming was always hurt. Like guys that are that big stay hurt usually, especially with a skinnier frame like Wembanyama has. And like Chet Holmgren missed his entire rookie year. So the precedent is not great. Like there's not a lot of I don't know for sure if he's going to be healthy, but I mean, with the skill set that he has and the shooting ability that he has, and he's a great defender. I don't really care that he's skinny as long as he stays healthy. Like he's going to be a really good basketball player, and he's going to be able to do things if he stays healthy that we have not seen, maybe ever from a guy that size. Like everyone's seen the clip of him missing the three, and then like having the put back dunk off his own missed three, like stuff like that's ridiculous. And the way he can handle the ball and shoot, it's just crazy. And so I think he's going to be a great player as long as he can stay healthy. I think San Antonio's lucky to get him. I've had friends like argue with me that are like, well, I'm so sure he's going to get hurt. Like I wouldn't take him with the first pick. And like, I get the sentiment, you know, because I can understand being worried and thinking about the past and how other guys that size have gotten hurt. But I mean, if he's on the board, you have to take him. Like if you're a GM and you don't take him, and like you take Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson at 1, like your owner is walking down there and firing you instantly.
Yes.
Because the upside is too high to not go for it, whether you think he could get hurt or not. But yeah, that's what I think. Like I think he's going to be a really good player.
I do too. I'm excited to see him, and dadgum you, Greg Popovich, three times with
three times.
Generational players, insane. Blake, I know you're a big Miami Heat fan, and I am. Yes. I have an affinity for the Heat due to my love of the Le Batard show and all their their antics around the Miami Heat. What's going to happen the rest of the series? Losing last night, obviously a little overwhelmed with the Nuggets, but you got one in Denver. Can the Heat really close this thing out? 8th seed in the finals, taking on big-time number 1 overall seed, 2-time MVP. Can the Miami Heat culture overcome and win this finals?
Can we? I think so.
Yes, we can.
No, I don't know if we will. Game 4 is the series, as far as I'm concerned. You can't win the series in Game 4, but you can lose it. Yes. And so stealing one in Denver was huge. Butler doesn't look right to me. I think he's re-hurt his ankle like 2 or 3 times on this playoff run, honestly, since that first game against the Knicks. He hasn't had the same lift on his jump shot. He hasn't been as active defensively. I think I saw that he hasn't had a steal the past 2 games, and he's one of like the best wing defenders in the league, and so that tells you something. But he's still been able to show up in big moments, like down the stretch in Game 7 against Boston, and down the stretch in Game 2 against Denver. So he's still been good. Miami didn't get enough from role players last night. You didn't get enough from like Duncan Robinson. Well, toward the end you did. Max Strus was not very good. Vincent didn't have a great first 3 quarters or so. He was in foul trouble like the whole game. And so you're going to need more from those guys, which they've been getting all playoffs, which has been good. I think they're going to come out ready to go in Game 4 because you're back at home. If you win that, you're 2-2, and you know you're at least getting Game 6 at home to extend it, even if you lose Game 5 in Denver. So I think that if they win Game 4, it will go 7. But I think if they lose Game 4, it's done in 5.
Spoelstra can figure out a way to get this next game. I
think Spoelstra can find a way. I think Bam Adebayo's been great. He's been great the whole playoffs, but he's been really great this series. Going up against who I think is the best player in the world in Jokic. It has been the way he's been playing has been really impressive. I think putting Kevin Love in the starting lineup in Game 2 was a must because of the size of Aaron Gordon and how on any switch he can just like bully whoever he's on. But the Heat. Miami's going to need more from guys like Robinson and Strus and Vincent earlier in the game rather than kind of like games 1 and 3 were very similar in that they had to they got down and then they started just pushing a comeback at the very end of the game with like 5-6 minutes left and cut it to like single digits, but then there wasn't enough time left. They're going to have to stay engaged with the intensity on defense. Denver's defense kind of went up to another level last night. They looked better on that end of the floor than I had seen because Miami had gotten a lot of open looks in Game 1 and couldn't make them, and in Game 2 they did make them and won. But Game 3 Miami wasn't getting as many good looks, so we'll see what kind of adjustments Spoelstra has. I think they can get Game 4, but if they lose Game 4, the series is over in 5, unfortunately.
Yes, you're probably right. Blake, It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you today. You can follow my friend Blake Byler at BlakeByler45 on the Twitter machine, covering all things Alabama basketball, really all things Alabama, but basketball specifically for BamaCentral. Blake, what's on tap in the next couple of weeks? I'd love to have you on again pretty soon once more news breaks. But what's on tap for you the next couple of weeks? I know we're looking for more stadium news, looking for transfer news, and one more assistant. Tell everybody where they can find you and what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks with you with the basketball coverage.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at BlakeByler45. That's where all of any content I write, I post there, as well as anything else I tweet about covering Alabama basketball, Alabama athletics. In the next couple of weeks, hoping for some transfer news. Should have more of that coming. Starting next week, I'm not sure what day, but I'll be starting a series where I'm going in and breaking down each newcomer on the Alabama basketball roster. And so I think I'm going to start with Aaron Estrada. But each one just looking at, I'll have some film breakdowns. I'll look at their numbers, background, just everything, kind of figure out and tell you what Alabama is getting in each of their guys. I'm probably going to go through the transfers first and then go look at the freshmen. I did the same thing last year. Those stories are still up from guys that came into the program a year ago. And so I'll be doing that, probably get one of those a week through the end of the summer until we run out of guys to write about. So. Yeah.
That'll be awesome. I look forward to hearing about how our new guys will fit into the system. Be looking for Blake Byler's film breakdowns and articles in the next week or so with that. Blake, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been a blast, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's Blake Byler joining us on the Joe Gaither Show. And this has been another edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I want to thank Blake for joining me. I want to thank those who watched us live. I appreciate all of our live listeners. CJ Watson, your comments on Facebook are much appreciated. You can comment on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Music on playback if you'd like to listen to us a little bit later. Or if you want me to clean, I will be cleaning up some of the dead spots and making it sound a little bit more efficient on the podcast side of things. So, for Blake Byler, that was our guest. For Chris Walsh, that's who puts me on. I'm Joe Gaither. You're the listener. We'll be joined by Will Sanders, class of 2024 offensive lineman from Brookwood High School, tomorrow. Will Sanders just got offered scholarships from Alabama and LSU. How's he feeling about his recruitment, and where will he fall? Brookwood High School only 25 minutes away from the University of Alabama. Will he be a future Alabama Crimson Tide football player? We'll find out from Will Sanders tomorrow, right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com and the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. One more time for our other shows, all things Bama and Blue Collar Unplugged. Go check them out as well. This has been the Joe Gaither Show on a wonderful Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow to close down the week. Have a great day and roll tide, everybody.